Before we tune into the secret frequencies of the Vance household and uncover a betrayal that shook the intelligence community, please remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps us continue to bring you these lost stories from the Cold War. The year was 1964. The location was Bridgeport, Connecticut, a bustling industrial hub that served as a bedroom community for the engineers and naval officers working at the nearby defense contracting firms. The American dream was in full swing. Lawns were manicured to emerald perfection, station wagons sat in driveways like dormant steel beasts, and the flickering blue light of television sets illuminated living room windows from coast to coast. It was a time of unprecedented prosperity, but beneath the veneer of suburban tranquility, a low-frequency anxiety hummed like a refrigerator in a quiet kitchen. The Cuban Missile Crisis was less than 2 years in the rearview mirror, and the concept of mutually assured destruction was a dinner-table reality. In the Vance household, located on a cul-de-sac called Maplewood Drive, the Cold War was not fought with missiles or treaties, but with silence. Robert Vance was a senior structural engineer for Electric Boat, the primary builder of submarines for the United States Navy. He was a man of slide rules and security clearances, a patriot who left for work at 6:30 a.m. sharp and returned at 5:30 p.m., his briefcase locked and his expression tired. His wife, Eleanor Vance, was the neighborhood's standard-bearer for domestic excellence. She was the woman who organized the bake sales, who ironed her husband's shirts with military precision, and who played Chopin on the upright piano in the living room on rainy Sunday afternoons. And then there was Leo. Leo Vance was 12 years old in the autumn of 1964. He was a boy of knees scuffed by asphalt and pockets full of spare copper wire. While other boys were trading baseball cards or playing stickball in the street, Leo was building a world in the corner of his bedroom. His obsession was amateur radio. He had built his own receiver from a Heathkit set his father had bought him for Christmas, soldering the connections with the intense focus of a bomb disposal expert. To Leo, the radio was magic. It was a way to travel without leaving his room, to pluck voices from the ether, truckers in Ohio, fishing boats off the Cape, and sometimes, if the atmospheric conditions were just right, languages he didn't understand drifting over the pole from Europe. On the night of October 14th, Leo was awake past his bedtime. The house was silent, save for the settling groans of the timber and the rhythmic ticking of the hallway clock. He wore heavy headphones, the black plastic pressing against his ears, shutting out the physical world. He was scanning the shortwave bands, turning the dial with microscopic adjustments, looking for a clear signal in the wash of static. He wasn't looking for music. He was looking for ghosts. That's what the kids in the radio club called them, the numbers stations. Strange monotone voices that broadcast strings of numbers on frequencies that weren't listed in any public registry. At 11:42 p.m. he found one. It was on a frequency near the bottom of the 20-meter band. The static cleared and a voice emerged. It was a woman's voice. It was mechanical, devoid of inflection, reciting numbers in English but with a cadence that felt slightly off. 4, 7, 1, 0, 9. Break. 2, 2, 5. Leo grabbed his notebook. He didn't know what the numbers meant, but the mystery was the point. He scribbled them down, his pencil scratching loudly in the quiet room. The broadcast lasted for 4 minutes. Then, the voice stopped, replaced by a dual-tone buzz that signaled the end of the transmission. Leo sat back, exhaling a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He stared at the notebook. It was just a game to him, a puzzle without a solution. He reached for his glass of water and took a sip, his eyes drifting to the family photograph on his dresser. It had been taken the previous summer at the beach. His father looked stoic, Leo looked sunburned, and his mother, Eleanor, looked beautiful, her hand raised as if shielding her eyes from the sun. Leo frowned. He looked back at the radio. There was something about the voice on the broadcast, the timbre, the pitch. It was distorted by distance and atmospheric interference, layered with the hiss of the ionosphere. But it had sounded familiar. He shook his head, laughing quietly at himself. It was late. His brain was playing tricks on him. He turned off the receiver, watching the orange glow of the vacuum tubes fade into darkness. He climbed into bed, pulling the quilt up to his chin. Down the hall, a floorboard creaked. It wasn't the settling of the house. It was the distinct, rhythmic pressure of footsteps. Leo froze. The footsteps stopped outside his door, hovered for a moment, and then moved on toward the stairs. Leo drifted to sleep, unaware that the voice he had heard on the radio and the footsteps in the hall were part of the same terrifying frequency. To understand the magnitude of what Leo Vance would eventually uncover, one must understand Eleanor Vance. In 1964, she was 42 years old, though she looked 10 years younger. She was a woman of impeccable grace, the kind who wore pearls to the grocery store and never let a hair fall out of place. Her neighbors described her as delightful but private. She was the first to bring a casserole if someone was sick, but the last to talk about her own past. The official story, the one Leo had grown up with, was that Eleanor was an orphan from the Midwest who had come east during the war to work as a secretary in the War Department, where she met Robert. It was a romantic, wholesome backstory that fit perfectly into the narrative of the post-war generation. There were no grandparents to visit, no cousins to write to. Just the three of them, a self-contained unit of American stability. But Leo, being an observant child, had noticed cracks in the porcelain. The morning after the radio transmission, the kitchen smelled of bacon and coffee. Sunlight streamed through the gingham curtains. Eleanor stood by the stove, flipping pancakes with a practiced rhythm. She was humming a tune, something classical. "Morning, sleepyhead," she said as Leo shuffled in. Her smile was bright, reaching her eyes. "Did you stay up late with that machine again?" "Just a little," Leo mumbled, sliding into his chair. "I heard a ghost station." Eleanor's spatula paused mid-air for a fraction of a second. It was imperceptible to anyone who wasn't looking for it, but Leo was looking. He saw the muscles in her forearm tense. "A ghost station?" she asked, her voice light, resuming the motion. "That sounds spooky." "Don't tell me you're listening to ghost stories instead of doing your math homework." "It's not stories, Mom. It's numbers." "Spies use them," Leo said, pouring syrup. "They send codes over the radio because nobody can trace who is listening." Eleanor turned off the burner and brought the plate to the table. She ruffled Leo's hair. "You and your imagination. Spy stories are for the movies, Leo. Real life is much more boring. It's just invoices and grocery lists." Robert entered the kitchen then, adjusting his tie. "Who's talking about spies?" "Your son thinks he's J. Edgar Hoover," Eleanor teased, kissing Robert on the cheek. "Make sure you eat, Bob. You said the project review is today." "The review," Robert sighed, sitting down. "Don't remind me. The Navy brass is coming down from Groton. They want to see the new propulsion schematics. It's going to be a 12-hour day." Leo watched his parents. They seemed so normal. But the memory of the voice from the night before nagged at him. 4, 7, 1. Later that afternoon, after school, Leo came home to an empty house. This wasn't unusual. His mother often ran errands on Tuesdays. He went to the kitchen to get a glass of milk and saw the mail on the counter. There was a magazine, a bill from the electric company, and a letter addressed to Eleanor. It had no return address, just a postmark from New York City. Leo knew he shouldn't touch it. Privacy was a strict rule in the Vance house, but curiosity is a powerful force in a 12-year-old boy. He picked up the envelope. It felt heavy, thicker than a normal letter. He held it up to the light. He couldn't see through the paper. He put it back exactly where he found it. When Eleanor returned an hour later, she looked flustered. Her coat was buttoned wrong, and her usually pristine hair was windblown. She saw Leo doing his homework at the table and smiled, but her eyes darted to the counter. She saw the mail. "Hi, honey," she said, walking quickly to the counter. She scooped up the mail, sliding the envelope to the bottom of the stack. "How was school?" "Fine," Leo said. "Mrs. Gable gave us a project on the Constitution." "That's nice," she said, already walking out of the room toward the study. "I just need to file these bills. I'll start dinner in 20 minutes. Leo listened. He heard the study door close. Then, the distinct click of the lock. His father's study was off limits, but it was rarely locked during the day. His mother cleaned in there all the time. Why lock it now? Leo crept to the hallway in his socks. He pressed his ear against the wood of the door. He expected to hear the rustle of paper, maybe the opening of a file cabinet. Instead, he heard a sound that made his stomach turn. It was the sound of a radio. Not music, not news, static. And then, a series of rhythmic taps. Dit-dit-da. Dit-da-dit. Morse code. His mother, the woman who claimed she didn't know how to change a fuse, was sending a transmission. Paranoia is a virus. Once it enters the bloodstream, it multiplies. For Leo, the sound of the Morse code key was the infection point. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was learning it to surprise him. Maybe she was listening to a broadcast and just tapping her pencil. But deep down, he knew. The rhythm was too precise. It was the hand of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Leo decided to conduct an investigation. He treated it like a game, a way to channel his confusion into action. He grabbed a composition notebook and labeled it Observation Log. Subject: Mom. Date: October 21st, 1964. He began to track her movements. He realized quickly that while his mother's life seemed spontaneous, it was actually governed by a rigid, hidden schedule. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m., Eleanor Vance left the house. She told Leo and Robert that she volunteered at the Children's Charity League in downtown Bridgeport. She would drive the family's blue Ford Fairlane and return by 4 p.m., usually with a story about sorting clothes or packing food baskets. On the first Wednesday of his investigation, Leo feigned a stomachache. He moaned and clutched his side until the school nurse called Eleanor to pick him up at 10 a.m. Eleanor was sympathetic, tucking him into bed with a heating pad and a stack of comic books. "I have to go to the Charity League for a few hours, Leo," she said, feeling his forehead. "Will you be okay on your own? Dad will be home at 5. "I'll just sleep, Mom," Leo lied. She left at 12:50 p.m. Leo waited until he heard the car back out of the driveway. Then he sprang into action. He was feeling perfectly fine. He dressed quickly in dark clothes, jeans, and a navy sweater. He grabbed his bicycle from the garage. He knew the route to downtown. It was about 3 miles. He pedaled hard, his breath misting in the cool October air. He kept a distance, watching the blue car turn onto Main Street. Downtown Bridgeport was busy. Shoppers crowded the department stores and businessmen hurried to lunch. Leo saw his mother's car parked near the public library. He ditched his bike in an alley and followed on foot, keeping to the shadows of the awnings. Eleanor did not go to the Charity League office, which was on 4th Street. Instead, she walked briskly to a park bench near the War Memorial. She sat down. She didn't read a book or feed the pigeons. She just sat, checking her watch. 10 minutes passed. Leo hid behind a newsstand, his heart pounding against his ribs. A man approached the bench. He was older, perhaps 60, wearing a gray raincoat and a fedora. He carried a folded newspaper under his arm. He sat on the opposite end of the bench. They didn't look at each other. They didn't speak. They sat in silence for 5 minutes. Then the man stood up. He left his newspaper on the bench. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Eleanor waited another 2 minutes. Then she slid over. She picked up the newspaper. She placed it into her oversized handbag. In the same motion, she took a brown paper bag from her purse. It looked like a lunch sack, and left it on the bench. She stood up and walked back toward her car. Leo remained frozen. He had seen this in movies. It was a dead drop. The exchange of information without contact. He looked at the brown bag on the bench. He had a terrifying urge to run over and grab it, to see what was inside. But before he could move, a young woman pushing a stroller sat down on the bench. She ignored the bag. Leo realized the bag was waiting for someone else, or maybe the man had signaled that the drop was compromised. No, the man had left the paper. Eleanor had left the bag. The transaction was half complete. Leo raced back to his bike. He had to beat her home. As he pedaled, his mind raced. What was in the bag? Notes, money, and what was in the newspaper she had taken. When Eleanor returned home at 4:15 p.m., she found Leo on the couch, looking pale. He wasn't faking it anymore. The reality of what he had seen had drained the blood from his face. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" she asked, putting a hand on his cheek. Her hand was cold. "Better," Leo whispered. "Did you have a good time at the charity?" "Oh, it was busy. Eleanor said, hanging up her coat. "We packed 50 boxes for the orphanage. It feels good to help, doesn't it?" Leo looked at her handbag, resting on the hall table. The newspaper was gone. The weeks dragged on and the atmosphere in the Vance house changed, at least for Leo. He felt like a stranger in his own life. Dinner conversations became minefields. Every question his mother asked felt like an interrogation. Every answer he gave felt like a slip-up. Robert Vance was oblivious. He was under immense pressure at work. The Navy was pushing for faster, quieter submarines to counter the growing Soviet fleet. He brought work home more often, spreading large blue schematics across the dining room table after dinner. "This is the new cooling system for the reactor," Robert explained to Leo one night, pointing at the complex web of white lines. "It's going to reduce the acoustic signature by 40%. The Russians won't be able to hear us until we're right on top of them." "Is it secret?" Leo asked. "Top secret," Robert said seriously. "That's why it goes back in the safe before I go to sleep." Robert had a small wall safe installed in his study behind a painting of a seascape. It was meant for bonds and deeds, but lately it held national secrets. One Tuesday in November, Leo was helping his mother with the laundry. It was a chore he usually avoided, but he was sticking close to her, watching. Eleanor was sorting whites and colors in the basement. "Can you hand me your father's shirts from the hamper?" she asked. Leo dug into the wicker hamper. He pulled out a bundle of dress shirts. Something fell out of the bundle and landed on the concrete floor with a soft thud. It was a canister, a small black metal cylinder about the size of a roll of quarters. Leo reached for it, but Eleanor was faster. She snatched it up with a speed that blurred. "What was that?" Leo asked. "Just lip gloss," she said, shoving it into her apron pocket. She turned her back to him, loading the washing machine. "Go upstairs and start your homework, Leo." "It looked like film," Leo said, standing his ground. "Like the film for Dad's camera." Eleanor spun around. Her face was hard, the mask slipping for a moment. "It's nothing, Leo. Stop pestering me. Go upstairs." Leo backed away. He had never seen her look at him like that. It wasn't anger. It was fear. That night, Leo lay in bed, unable to sleep. He thought about the canister. It was film. Minox film. He had seen it in a photography magazine. It was used in tiny spy cameras. He waited until 2 a.m. He got up and crept down to the study. The door was unlocked. He went inside and closed it softly. He didn't know the combination to the safe. He didn't need to. He went to the desk. He looked at the blotter. He looked at the lamp. He looked for the camera. He checked the drawers. Pens, paper clips, stamps. He checked the bookshelves. He checked the hollow space behind the curtains. Finally, he checked the sewing basket his mother kept in the corner of the room, which she used while sitting with Robert as he worked. Underneath a pile of yarn and needles, he felt a hard, rectangular object. He pulled it out. It was a camera, a Minox B, stainless steel, barely 4 inches long. It was sleek, cold, and beautiful. Leo held it in his hand. Why did his mother have a spy camera hidden in her sewing basket in his father's study? He knew the answer. She was photographing the blueprints. While Robert went to the bathroom or got a glass of water, or maybe after he fell asleep if she knew the combination, she was stealing the secrets of the U.S. Navy. Leo put the camera back. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped the sewing needles. He realized then that his mother wasn't just a liar. She was a traitor, and she was using his father's trust to destroy him. Leo didn't speak to anyone for 3 days. He went to school, sat in the back of the class, and stared out the window. The weight of the secret was crushing him. He was 12 years old. He wasn't equipped to handle high treason. He thought about telling his father, but what if his father was in on it? No, that was impossible. Robert was the most patriotic man Leo knew. If Robert found out, it would break him. It would kill him. Leo needed proof, irrefutable proof. He needed to be sure before he blew up his world. He went back to his radio. He began to monitor the frequencies every night. He found the ghost station again, the woman's voice. 4, 7, 1. He set up a reel-to-reel tape recorder next to the speaker. He recorded the broadcast. Then he needed a sample of his mother's voice. On a Saturday morning, he brought the tape recorder into the kitchen. "Mom, say something for my project," Leo said, trying to sound casual. "I'm recording an interview about family history." Eleanor laughed. "Oh, Leo, I sound terrible on tape. Please, just read this." He handed her a newspaper clipping about a bake sale. She sighed but smiled. "The Ladies' Auxiliary will be holding their annual drive this Saturday at the community center." She read for a minute. Leo recorded it. That afternoon, he locked his bedroom door. He played the numbers station recording. Then he played his mother's voice. He listened to the vowels, the way she pronounced auxiliary, the sharp intake of breath before a sentence. He played them back and forth. Click, whir, play. 4, 7, 1. The Ladies' Auxiliary? The pitch was different. The radio voice was disguised, lowered mechanically. But the cadence, the rhythm, it was identical. The way she hit the T's hard. The slight pause after a list of 3 items. It was her. Eleanor Vance was the voice on the radio. She wasn't just a spy, she was a broadcaster. She was sending instructions, or perhaps confirming receipt of data, to other agents. Leo felt tears hot in his eyes. He looked at the photograph on his dresser again. The smiling woman on the beach was a fiction. The real woman was a ghost in the machine. The crisis point arrived on Thanksgiving. The Vances were hosting a small dinner. Robert had invited his boss, Mr. Henderson, and his wife. The house was spotless. The turkey was roasting. Eleanor was the picture of the perfect hostess, wearing a velvet dress and pearls. Leo was on edge. He had hidden the tape recording under a loose floorboard in his closet. He felt like everyone could see the guilt written on his face. During dinner, Mr. Henderson, a boisterous man with a red face, started talking about security. "We've had some leaks," Henderson said, chewing on a drumstick. "Down at the Norfolk yard. The Bureau is involved. They think there's a ring operating out of the northeast." Robert looked concerned. "Do they have leads?" "They're close," Henderson said. "They're tracking radio bursts, shortwave stuff, sophisticated." Leo watched his mother. She was cutting her turkey. Her hand didn't shake. Her expression didn't change. "That sounds terrifying," Eleanor said smoothly. "More wine, Helen." "Leo," Mr. Henderson boomed, turning to the boy. "Your dad tells me you're a radio whiz. You hear any commie spies on that set of yours?" The table went quiet. It was a joke, a light-hearted jab. Leo looked at Mr. Henderson. Then he looked at his mother. Eleanor's eyes were locked on him. They were cold, warning. "Don't. Just fishing boats, sir," Leo said quietly. "Good lad." Henderson laughed. After dinner, while the adults were having coffee in the living room, Leo went to the kitchen to get water. He found his mother standing by the back door, looking out into the dark yard. The door was open a crack. "Mom?" She jumped. She turned around, and for a second, she looked like a cornered animal. She was holding a small piece of paper. She crumpled it instantly into her palm. "You startled me, Leo," she hissed. "Who were you talking to?" Leo asked. He hadn't heard anyone, but he felt a presence. "No one. I was getting fresh air." She walked past him, brushing his shoulder. "Go be with the guests." Leo looked out the door. In the snow-dusted bushes at the edge of the yard, he saw footprints, fresh ones. Someone had been standing right there by the door. His mother wasn't just using dead drops anymore. They were coming to the house. Leo realized he was running out of time. If the FBI was tracking radio bursts, they would find his mother eventually. And if they found her, they would take her away. Maybe they would take his father too. Maybe they would take him. He had to stop it. He had to make her stop. He formulated a desperate plan. He would intercept the next message. He knew the pattern now. The numbers station broadcast on Tuesday nights. The dead drop was Wednesday. On Tuesday night, Leo was ready. He tuned in. He recorded the numbers. 5, 9, 3, 0. He spent the whole night trying to decode it. He used a book on basic cryptography he found at the library. It was useless. It was a one-time pad cipher, unbreakable without the key, but he didn't need to read it. He just needed to disrupt the drop. Wednesday came. Leo didn't fake sick this time. He skipped school entirely. He hid in the garage behind the stack of winter tires. At 12:45 p.m., Eleanor came out. She was carrying the Charity League tote bag. Leo watched as she opened the car trunk. She placed the bag inside. She went back into the house, presumably to grab her keys. Leo moved. He sprinted to the car. He opened the trunk. It wasn't latched all the way yet. He grabbed the tote bag. He replaced it with an identical canvas bag he had filled with old newspapers and gym clothes. He closed the trunk softly. He ran back to his hiding spot. Eleanor came out, got in the car, and drove away. She was delivering his dirty gym shorts to Soviet intelligence. Leo took the real bag to his room. He locked the door. He dumped the contents onto his bed. It wasn't just film. There were photocopies of documents. Propulsion drive shaft, MK4. Acoustic dampening tiles. Names of personnel. And there was money. Stacks of $20 bills. Thousands of dollars. And a passport. A Canadian passport. With his mother's picture, but the name Margaret Kovich. And a second passport. For a boy. For him. Lucas Kovich. She wasn't just selling secrets. She was planning to run. She was going to take him. She was going to kidnap him to Russia. Leo sat on his bed, surrounded by the evidence of his mother's betrayal. The money looked dirty. The passports looked like death sentences. He thought about his father, Robert, who worked so hard. Robert, who believed in the rightness of things. Robert, who was going to come home tonight and kiss a woman who was planning to steal his son and destroy his life. Leo packed everything back into the bag. He hid it in the attic, under the insulation. He went downstairs. He sat in the living room and waited. Eleanor came home at 4:30 p.m. She was pale. She was shaking. She came into the living room. She saw Leo. "Where is it?" she asked. Her voice was a low growl. "Where is what?" Leo asked, watching TV. "The bag, Leo. The bag from the trunk." She walked over and turned off the TV. She stood over him. "I got to the center, and I opened the bag, and it was your clothes." "I don't know what you mean," Leo said. She grabbed his shoulders. Her fingers dug in hard. "Don't lie to me. This isn't a game. Do you have any idea what you've done? These are dangerous people, Leo. If I don't give them what they want." She stopped. She realized she had admitted it. Leo looked at her. "You're a spy." Eleanor let go of him. She collapsed onto the sofa. She put her face in her hands. She didn't cry. She just breathed ragged, harsh breaths. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not what you think. I didn't have a choice. They have leverage. From before I met your father." "You're stealing Dad's work," Leo said, his voice trembling. "You're stealing from our country." "I'm trying to save us," she hissed, looking up. Her eyes were wild. "We have to leave, Leo, tonight. We have to go. They know you took the bag. They'll come for us." "I'm not going anywhere with you," Leo said. "I'm telling Dad." "You can't tell him." She stood up, blocking his path. "If you tell him, they'll kill him. Do you understand? They will kill your father." Leo froze. "We grab the bag," Eleanor said, her voice frantic. "We get in the car. We drive to Montreal. From there, we fly out. It's the only way to keep him safe." "You're lying," Leo said. "You lie about everything." "I love you, Leo." "I love your father. That's the only truth that matters." "If you loved him," Leo said, stepping back, "you wouldn't have done this." The phone rang. It screamed in the silent house. Eleanor stared at it. "Don't answer it." It rang again and again. Chapter 9. The Call. Leo moved toward the phone. Eleanor lunged for him, but he was smaller and faster. He dodged her and grabbed the receiver in the kitchen. "Hello?" "Leo." It was his father. "Leo, is your mother there?" "Dad," Leo choked out. "Leo, listen to me." Robert's voice was tight, urgent. "I'm at work. Security. Security has the building locked down. They found something. A breach." Leo looked at Eleanor. She was standing in the doorway, her face a mask of terror. "Dad, come home," Leo said. "I can't, son. The FBI is here. They're asking questions about the house, about Mom." Eleanor lunged and ripped the phone from the wall. The cord snapped. "We have to go," she screamed. "Now!" She grabbed Leo's arm and dragged him toward the back door. Leo fought back. He kicked and screamed. He bit her hand. "No, I'm not going." She was strong. Desperation gave her strength. She dragged him into the garage. She threw him into the car. "Stay down," she ordered. She ran to the driver's side. She fumbled with her keys. Leo saw his chance. He popped the lock. He scrambled out the passenger door. "Leo!" she screamed. He ran. He ran out of the garage, down the driveway, into the street. "Help!" he screamed. "Help!" Eleanor reversed the car out of the garage, tires screeching. She wasn't chasing him. She was fleeing. She realized she couldn't take him. She had to save herself. Leo watched as the blue Fairlane roared down Maplewood Drive, disappearing around the corner. He stood alone in the middle of the street. The silence of the suburbs rushed back in. Chapter 10. The Bureau. 10 minutes later, the street was filled with black sedans. Men in suits swarmed the lawn. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. A tall man with a flat-top haircut approached Leo, who was sitting on the curb, hugging his knees. "Leo Vance?" the man asked. Leo nodded. "I'm Agent Miller, FBI. Where is your mother?" "She left," Leo said. "She went that way." He pointed. Agent Miller signaled to the other cars. 2 of them peeled off in pursuit. "Is my dad okay?" Leo asked. "He's being questioned, son. He's safe." Miller sat down next to him on the curb. "Did she hurt you?" Leo shook his head. "I have something for you." "What's that?" "In the attic, a bag and a tape recording in my closet." Agent Miller looked at the boy. He saw the devastation in his eyes. "You did a brave thing, Leo." "No," Leo said, tears finally spilling over. "I told on her. I made her leave. She made her choices a long time ago," Miller said gently. "You didn't do this. She did." They found the bag in the attic. The agents cataloged the contents on the lawn. The camera, the cash, the passports, the stolen blueprints. It was a treasure trove of evidence. It was enough to send Eleanor Vance away for life. It was enough to execute her, if the prosecutors were vicious enough. Chapter 11. The Capture. They caught her on the Tappan Zee Bridge. She had made it almost to New York. A state trooper recognized the car. There was no high-speed chase. She simply pulled over. She surrendered without a fight. Robert Vance came home at midnight. He looked 10 years older. His tie was undone, his eyes red. He walked into the house. It was full of agents dusting for fingerprints and taking photos. He found Leo in his room. Leo was sitting on his bed, staring at the radio. Robert walked over and sat next to him. He put his arm around his son. They sat there for a long time without speaking. "Did you know?" Leo asked quietly. "No," Robert said. His voice cracked. I never suspected a thing. She was my wife." "She was a spy," Leo said. "She was both," Robert said. "People are complicated, Leo. They can be 2 things at once." "Is she coming back?" "No," Robert said. "No, she's not coming back." Chapter 12. The Static Remains. The trial was closed to the public. National security. Eleanor Vance pleaded guilty to espionage. She didn't testify against her handlers. She took the fall alone. She was sentenced to 30 years in a federal penitentiary. Robert Vance lost his security clearance. He was moved to a desk job in logistics, managing inventory for non-classified parts. The neighbors stopped inviting them to parties. The Vances became the pariahs of Maplewood Drive. Leo stopped listening to the radio. He took the Heathkit receiver apart, unsoldering every connection, returning it to a pile of scrap components. He couldn't bear the sound of the static anymore. 1 year later, a letter arrived for Leo. It was from the prison. The censors had blacked out several lines, but the message was clear. "My dearest Leo, I am so sorry. I hope one day you can understand that the world is not black and white. There are shades of gray that you are too young to see. I loved you. That was never a lie. Everything else might have been, but you were real. Be good. Listen to your father. Love." Mom. Leo folded the letter. He put it in the box where he used to keep his radio tubes. He was 13 now. The Cold War dragged on. The world was still divided into East and West, us and them. But Leo knew the truth. The line didn't run through Berlin. It ran through the kitchen. It ran through the living room. It ran through the heart of the people you loved. He went to the window and looked out at the street. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. It looked peaceful. It looked perfect. But Leo knew better. He knew that if you listened closely enough, underneath the bird song and the lawnmowers, there was always a signal. There was always a code. And there was always someone listening. Thank you for reading this story of the Vance family. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Cold War history, please like the video and share it with a friend, and let us know in the comments, would you have turned her in? Until next time.